Today we're continuing our jersey pattern drafting series and we are going to learn how to make a raglan top from our basic jersey block. Now last week we looked at how to create this basic jersey block and we're going to use that as a starting point to then adapt and make this gorgeous little raglan top today. I'll be talking you step by step how to use your block, how to edit it and change it, and then also how to create your pattern pieces from it, as well as how to finish and add a neckline onto it as well. So by the end of this video, you will have a completed t-shirt, which is going to look gorgeous on you. As usual, you're going to need your standard pattern drafting tools, which are listed next to me here. So take a look at those and go and grab them. In this video, I'm going to be using colourful Sharpies, so you can see them on the screen above nice and clearly. But if you're following along at home, do use a nice sharp pencil to be as accurate as possible with your pattern drafting. And again, the block that I'm going to show on the screen is my personal block. Yours will look different to that block because everybody has a different body shape. But the principles I'm going to demonstrate today will apply to any of your jersey blocks. So let's get straight on into it. Okay, so in front of me here, we've got my basic jersey block with the centre back, centre front. It's the same block for the front and the back. The only difference for the back is that the neckline is higher and the front has a lower neckline. Other than that, it's exactly the same. I've then also got my basic jersey block sleeve, which is here. I've got my arm side line annotated there, and this was the help line that we drew from that point up to there in order to get our nice little curve, okay. The first measurement that we want to do is to measure from that help point down to the bottom down here. For me, it's 6.5. Make a note of that. Then draw a line from this point here underneath the arm on the block up to this line here, which intersects the arm side at that point. And it needs to be the same distance as that distance right there. So for me, it was 6.5, wasn't it? So I'm just going to pivot my ruler until my 6.5 line hits that line. And then I'm just going to draw a help line in. Find the midpoint of that line and offset a point 0.7 centimetres away from that line. Now in a minute we're going to use that little help point as a reference for when we create the curve of the new curve of the arm side. But right now what we need to do is just find where the neck point is going to interact with up here. Mark a point along the front neck curve, which is 3 centimetres from the top. Do the same for the back neck curve. For the front one, we're going to draw a line from this 3 centimetre offset point down to kind of meet in with a nice curve that comes around here. Now really it should sort of come in to, you know, that point there and then curve off, but actually my curve means that it's going to be easier just to draw a straight line from here down to that help point and actually then just continue that existing curve around. That works really nicely for me. My back neck curve, I'm just going to dash in a green colour, so hopefully you can see the difference. And that's very much following the same principle, coming to that point and then just easing its way in. Okay, let's create the pattern pieces for the body sections now. We're going to create 2 pattern pieces, one for the front and one for the back. I am going to add a 1.5 centimetre hem at the bottom. Add a seam allowance to the side seam and also to the shoulder seam. Add a 1.5 centimetre seam allowance to the back neck. Now at the point where this line comes and intersects with this point here, we're just going to add a double notch because this is the back. And then just annotate the pattern piece as usual. This is going to be placed on the fold. This is the raglan top, back, just cut 1 on fold. And of course the grain line runs parallel with the centre back. We also might find it helpful to add a little notch at the centre back, right on the corner there, simply because when we attach the neckband onto that, it's going to be helpful to have a little notch reference there, isn't it? Brilliant. Let's trace over that same block, but this time following our front shoulder and neckline. Okay, again, this is just going to be placed on the fold, so just draw a straight line down the centre back, centre front. Let's add our hem to the bottom and draw in our side seams. Now if you wanted to, you could just curve these side seams so that you've got a gentle kind of softer curve around the waist. Now this time we're going to follow the red line that goes all the way up to the front neck up here. And again, just finding a point where this line hits the arm side there, this time just for a single notch for the front. And then just dot in the front neckline around that curve. That's quite a sharp point at the top, so I'm just going to neaten it off and just square it off like that. Again, adding a little notch by the front neck is going to help us when we place our neckband. Place on fold. Our grain line runs parallel with our centre front. And this is our raglan top front pattern piece, and we're just going to cut one on the folds. Okay, and let's now look at the sleeve block. We're going to use our original jersey inset sleeve block, and we're going to adapt it to make a beautiful raglan sleeve. So the first thing we need to do is actually duplicate our block and just flip it over and mirror it so we've got a full sleeve here. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is just extend this centre front line, and then we want to draw two parallel lines on either side of that centre front line at 3 centimetres offset. Annotate the sleeve to say that this is going to be the back and this side is the front. Next, let's go and take our front and back block, and we just want to take one measurement. So for the back arm, what we want to know is the length from the top of the back neck all the way to this arm side line here. For me, it's 20.5. Then I'm going to draw on the back side here a line that is the distance I've just measured, for me 20.5, and pivoting at that point I'm going to pivot the ruler until it hits this line here, and I can draw a line that is 20.5. Now working on the front side, we want to take our block of the front pattern piece, and we just want to measure from our neckline up here to that arm side line, which is just here. So take that measurement. For me it's 17.5, for you it'll be something different. And then draw a line from this point here up to that line, which is that distance you just measured. Rotating the ruler until you get the correct distance. Then very simply just join those 2 points with a nice little curve to create your neckline. And at this point here on the back, you can then put a double notch, and on this point here at the front, you can put a single notch. Okay, and there we have it, our gorgeous little sleeve for our raglan top. Brilliant. Let's now create our pattern piece for our sleeve. We basically just want to add a seam allowance to everything, the entire perimeter of this pattern piece. We're adding a seam allowance to the hem in order to be able to hem the sleeve and up at the neck as well to ensure that we can attach the neckband. Don't forget to add your notches to your front and your back. Grain line is just going to very simply follow the centre front line, centre fold line. And this is our raglan sleeve, and we're just going to cut 2. Brilliant, we've now done our sleeve. Next we're going to draft our neckband, and this is based on the circumference of the neckline of the jersey top that we've just drafted, and then we're just going to multiply that length by 85%. Okay, so what we've got in front of us here is all of our pattern pieces that we've drafted so far. What we need for the neckband calculation is the sleeve neck, the distance of that, the front neck, which is this measurement, and the back neck. So first of all, we're just going to find out what all of those are. So go grab a tape measure and we'll measure it out together. Okay, so our tape measure has this really lovely thing where we can just curve it round and walk it round the curve. So that's 7.2. My front neck is the next one I'm going to measure. And then finally my back neck. Don't forget the back neck goes from the green line here. Let's tap all of those amounts into your calculator. So half of my neck from my centre front up to where my shoulder seam is, my shoulder back to my back, and then halfway around the back is 21.1 centimetres. Now, if I then just drew my neckband at that length, what I might find is that the neckband sort of flaps around a little bit. And so what we want to do is just to reduce the neckband length so that it's slightly smaller than the circumference of our neckline. And what this does is it sort of brings in and makes the neckline just sit nice and flat on our body, which is exactly what we want. Now, the amount that you want to reduce your neckband by will depend on the type of fabric and the aesthetic that you want. Usually it's somewhere between 80 and 90% of the length of your neck. So I'm just going to go for a happy halfway and just go 85% for this. So half of my neckline is 21.1. I'm then going to times it by 0.85. And whatever that is, I'm just going to write that down here. So for me, it's 17.9 centimetres. Okay, great. We now know the length of our neckband. Let's just draft it out using a fresh piece of paper. Start off by drawing a straight line that is the length that you need. For me, 17.9. We're just going to do a really small little neckband. It's only 1 centimetre wide, but obviously we want that to be doubled over. So I'm now going to draw the width of my neckband at 2 centimetres in total, and just square that off. In order to create our pattern piece now, we just want to add our seam allowance to that neckband, and we are going to assume that we're just going to cut this on the fold. So I'm just going to extend the bottom in a nice straight line. That bit will be cut on the fold, and the rest of it is going to have a nice little seam allowance of 1.5 centimetres all the way around. Let's just annotate our pattern piece. Now for the neckband, the pattern piece could be cut on the bias. If your fabric is not particularly stretchy, that's really going to help you with your neckline in terms of cutting it on the bias. But generally speaking, with most jerseys, it's okay just to kind of place it on the fold with the grain line going straight down. Obviously, if your fabric has, directional prints that you want to play around with, and if it has stretch in both directions, like four-way stretch, you could also, put the grain line going down the neckband as well. This is an area that you can just have a little play around with, really. It depends on the type of fabric and the aesthetic that you're wanting to create. The only other thing that I'm going to want to just mark on, it's quite tricky, is just a little notch here and down at the bottom, because we want those to be lining up with the centre front notch that we've done on the centre of the top. Brilliant. Let's cut out those pattern pieces now out of fabric, and then we'll just sew them up together so we can see the aesthetic together of what it looks like. We're going to start off by sewing the sleeve to the back just at the shoulder seams. So we've got a double notch at the back here, and I'm just going to lay the sleeve on top with the double notch matching, so that's the back sleeve, and we're just going to pin and then sew that in place. If you're not sure how to sew jersey, we do have a whole series on our Minerva YouTube channel that talks you through exactly how to sew jersey, what types of needles, what types of stitches, and loads of really helpful information. So do refer to those videos if you want some further guidance on how to sew jersey. Excellent. Once you've sewn both sleeves on, we're now just going to get the front pattern piece and pop it over with the right sides together over the sleeve, and then just sew the shoulder seams of the front to the sleeve shoulder seams. I'm going to pin and sew that using a standard seam allowance on both sides, so then you'll have like a continuous loop of fabric all the way around. The fabric that I've chosen for this video is our Minerva exclusive Popcorn Jelly Viscose, which is in our Jersey Stretch Knit fabric range. If you'd like to use the same fabric, we will link this product in our video description so you can easily find it on our website. Now that we've sewn the shoulders onto the front and back, we can now pin and sew the side seams. So let's do that for both sides next, making sure that we're just lining up the hem at the bottom and also the underarm seam at the arm side. Okay, so our side seams and underarm seams are all completely done. Finish those as you need to. Brilliant, let's get our neckband sorted next. So we're just going to fold it and then sew along the short side here to make it one continuous loop. Then press that seam open and then fold the entire band together with wrong sides together so that it forms like a double-sided band, just like that. You'll find it helpful to press that now. Okay, so at this point we can see where our centre back is over there on that side, and what we just want to do is to line up the seam at the neckband so that it runs and sits perfectly at the centre back, simply because we just don't really want that seam anywhere else. We don't want it to be showing, and definitely not around the front. Okay, so we've got all three of our raw edges pinned together and up at the top here. Then we've also got a little notch at the front, at the other side of the band, splitting it in half, and we're just going to line that notch up with the centre front, and that way we've got exactly half of the neckband spanning the circumference of both sides of the neckline. At this point we are literally just going to stretch and pin the neckband to the neckline of the raglan top. Once you've pinned your neckline, just sew it together so that it looks like this. Finish the seam in whatever method you'd like to. You may also want to press the seam down and then just do a little line of top stitching to hold the seam in place. Once you've completed and done the neckline, the next thing to do is very simply just to sort out the hems of the sleeve and also the hem at the bottom of the garment. For this particular block, I've just overlocked the edge, turned it under by 1.5 centimetres and then sewn it down together. So here's the end result of our raglan sleeve drafting little experiment. Obviously with the neckline you could raise it or lower it just to fit around the neckline how you want. The sleeves, again, you could take the volume out a little bit if you wanted to, and of course the raglan sleeve detail is really beautiful on the seam right here. So thank you for joining me today. I've been Izzy at Minerva. It's been great fun to do that pattern drafting experience with you and just to show you how to adapt your jersey top to make a raglan top. A really fun, simple little alteration and incredibly easy to fit because there is no like inset sleeve, so it's all in one. So it has a really lovely, simple, smooth aesthetic and an absolute classic shape to play around with. So thank you for joining me today. I'll see you next week as we continue this mini little series all about pattern drafting.